Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 30th edition of Office Hours. My name is Dr. Tisa Silver Kennedy, and I'm the founder and director of the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness. So I'm going to do a quick check to make sure that everything is going live on Facebook, and then I'll be right back to dive into this evening's session. All right, looks like we are streaming, so we're good to go. All right, as usual, I'll tell you a bit about the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness, then a brief announcement about office hours to give you some details about this particular program, and then we'll go into questions from our community. And there have been plenty since we last got together for office hours on November the 16th. So about the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness, we are a nonprofit organization that was founded in the summer of 2021 with the vision to help Maryland's students and their families build financial life skills and empower them to thrive. The vision is for all college and career students in Maryland, and we believe that they should be able to achieve these 6 pillars of collegiate financial wellness as identified by the center. And they are being creditworthy, ready, resilient, empowered, successful, and thriving. I won't read all the details of the pillars to you, but if you're interested in learning more about the center, its vision, its mission, as well as additional programs, please visit us online at mccfw.org anytime. As for office hours is a free semi-monthly virtual student loan clinic that provides borrowers with a trusted venue to help them navigate student loans and prepare for financial success beyond repayment. I do have to add a disclaimer here that office hours is presented for informational purposes only and should not be construed as financial or legal advice. Every borrower should take inventory of their loans, their personal finances, as well as their goals and preferences to make decisions about which repayment strategy is best for them. We at the center are here to provide you with the most reliable information we can find to help you make more informed decisions, but ultimately those decisions are yours. In tonight's questions, I am using information, and you'll see some letters and samples that came from borrowers within our community that have questions, and I'm sure many people have the same questions, but what you're seeing tonight will be from real people. So let's dive into the first question. This one is, I got an email from the Department of Education saying that I was approved for student loan debt relief, but it's blocked. What does this mean? Well, I can tell you I got the same email, and so I've just got a quick snapshot of the email to me that gave some updates on the broad cancellation program that was announced on August 24th by President Biden. So this is just a snapshot of that email, but I pulled out a few key points. The first one is you are eligible for relief under the plan. So this lets me know that my application was reviewed, and based on that review, I am eligible for relief. The second key point is you do not need to take any further action. By completing the application, you've done everything that you need to do. The third key point is lawsuits have blocked our ability to discharge your debt at present. So in a nutshell, the money can't move. Even though people have applied and have been deemed eligible, having had their applications approved, the actual discharge or cancellation of the debt has been blocked due to multiple lawsuits. So the bottom line here is that if the Biden-Harris Student Debt Relief Plan is deemed legal and allowed to proceed, then those of you who have received this email explaining that your applications have been approved will eventually see your debt discharged. The amount of debt discharged will be subject to the eligibility criteria attached to the plan. So I'm just like you, and then I'm waiting for things to move. And once they move forward, I look forward to seeing that cancellation reflected in my account and also in yours. As for what that relief will look like, I just want to give a quick refresher so that people are aware of how much they can expect to receive should the plan move forward and they meet the eligibility requirements. So I've got 5 questions here. The first one is, are your loans federally held? You can verify that at studentaid.gov. If your answer is yes, then you can move forward to the next question. The second question is, were your original loans dispersed before June 30th of 2022? You can also verify that information at studentaid.gov and look at your loan types as well as disbursement dates. If the answer is yes to that question, you want to move on to the next question, which has to do with income caps. referring specifically to the years 2020 and 2021. If you are a single borrower or someone who is married but filing separately, the income cap for either year is $125,000 as measured, by your adjusted gross income. If you are a borrower who is married and files jointly, or if you file as head of household, then the income cap for AGI jumps up to $250,000. And those income caps are valid for either the year 2020 or the year 2021. To verify that information, you'd want to take a look at your personal income tax return, which is Form 1040. On line 11, you can see your AGI. And if you answered yes to all three of those questions, then you should be eligible for up to $10,000 worth of cancellation. And if you already received the email that your application was approved, then you know this. You might not know exactly how much you're approved for, but you know that you are in the pipeline, your application has been approved, and should the plan move forward, you could expect to see that relief. As for jumping from the $10,000 level to the $20,000 eligibility level, there are two additional questions. The first one, is your balance on loans borrowed for your own education greater than $10,000? This question speaks directly to people who have Parent Plus loans. If you have Parent Plus loans only, then the maximum amount of relief that you could receive through the Biden-Harris Student Debt Relief Plan is $10,000. However, if you have Parent Plus loans that you've borrowed for your child's education and student loans that you've borrowed for your own education, then you could be eligible for more than $10,000 of relief. But it depends on how much you owe toward the loans that were taken out for your own education. So if the balance on loans that you borrowed for your own education exceeds $10,000, then you can move on to the next question, which is, did you receive a Pell Grant? If you received a Pell Grant, then you should be eligible for up to $20,000 worth of relief through the Biden-Harris Student Debt Relief Plan. It's important to note that the relief offered by this plan is not cash relief. So no one is going to be cut a check for $10,000 or $20,000. This is cancellation that will be reflected in the borrower's balance. So if someone owed $30,000 and they were eligible for $20,000 of relief, they would see their balance reduced from $30,000 down to $10,000. No cash is actually received, but there would be, of course, long-term savings because the balance that they owe has dropped from $30,000 down to $10,000. So for everyone who received that email, you know that your application has been approved. It's just that the discharge cannot move forward until the plan has been deemed legal by courts. For everyone else, the application is also halted right now as well. So should things move forward and the application becomes available again, if you have not applied, I would encourage you to definitely apply for relief through that plan once the option is available again, and wait for your turn to receive that email that says you're approved. And in the meantime, I will be keeping up with the legal proceedings, and hopefully there will be some resolution soon so that the plan can move forward. But as of today, November 30th, 2022, the distribution of that debt relief is still blocked and the application is not currently available. All right, so let's move on to our next question, which is the payment pause going to be extended? And this was a question that a lot of people were wondering about 2 weeks ago during our November 16th edition of Office Hours. And we have a development. On November 22nd, the Department of Education announced that the payment pause would be extended. And this pause means that no payments are currently due, interest is not accruing, and collections activities have been suspended. And I wanted to give you all the exact information from the Department of Education about this latest extension. So per the Department of Education, the extension will alleviate uncertainty for borrowers as the Biden-Harris administration asked the Supreme Court to review the lower court orders that are preventing the department from providing debt relief for tens of millions of Americans. As such, payments will resume 60 days after the department is permitted to implement the program or the litigation is resolved. This will give the Supreme Court an opportunity to resolve the case during its current term. If the program has not been implemented and the litigation has not been resolved by June 30th of 2023, Payments will resume 60 days after that. So in a nutshell, the payment pause has been extended. This is the same payment pause that went into effect March 13th of 2020. So it has been extended, but the final date of the extension is up in the air. We have to wait and see what happens with the courts. But right now, if we're looking at June 30th, 2023, and then 60 days after that, we're looking at August. So again, I'll be paying attention, waiting to see the results of legal proceedings, but at least while things are getting worked through in the courts, people won't have to worry about making payments. So stay tuned for updates. All right, so we have another question, and this is about consolidation from a borrower who received a paid in full notice, and they'd like to know, does this mean my loans have been canceled? And it's a really good question that comes up kind of often, because once a loan has been consolidated, that original loan is paid in full. So that debt is satisfied, but a new debt is created for the same amount. So the snapshot that you see here is an actual letter that a borrower received from their servicer, MOHELA. And it says, this letter is to inform you, MOHELA has received the following consolidation payments from the U.S. Department of Education for your MOHELA Serviced Education Loan. So it notes that there was basically $12,000 received to pay off a loan on November 2nd of this year. The loan was originally dispersed in October of 2010, but it was consolidated in November of 2022. So what happened is the U.S. Department of Education paid off the old loan and originated a new loan for the exact same amount. Between the payoff and the creation of the new loan, the borrower receives this letter that lets them know that the original loan has been paid in full. But some people have seen these letters and thought that it meant that their debt was canceled because it's a paid in full notice. It is true that the original loan has been paid in full, but it was paid in full by way of the creation of a new loan, and that's the consolidation loan. So the loan does continue, but it continues in a new form, and that's through the new direct consolidation loan. And so repayment will begin on that new consolidation loan. And since this loan was originated during the payment pause, payments will not begin on this loan until the CARES Act forbearance has officially ended. And I'm just going to check for one moment to see if we got any comments on Facebook or questions. All right, I don't see any, so I'm going to keep on moving to our next question. I have worked for a qualifying employer for 16 years. I got a letter that I have 5 qualifying payments. Why? So this is yet another example of a PSLF letter, and borrowers who are having some difficulty understanding exactly what these letters mean, because sometimes the information appears to be conflicting. So I just wanted to give you all a little bit of background on what borrowers have been seeing over the past several months. And this is especially for people who have consolidated as a part of their process of applying for public service loan forgiveness. So usually the first letter that a borrower receives that includes a qualifying payment count has a payment count that seems unusually low. And that's because from what we've seen so far, the first qualifying payment count after a consolidation only considers the most recent loan. And since the most recent loan is a newly created consolidation loan, that loan has very little history to count. So as I said, the first payment count reflects months in repayment on the most recent loan. And that's because the payment count temporarily resets to 0 once a consolidation loan has been originated. Now, after that letter, another letter comes, and the timing varies. I've seen some people get the second letter within a few weeks of receiving the first letter. And that second letter shows a qualifying payment count that is more accurate in its reflection of the months that the borrower has in repayment. So the first letter, again, it's usually surprising in a not so good way, because people are expecting to see a larger number because they have lengthy loan repayment histories. But it's just good to know how this works. And that's that the first letter, from what we've seen so far, usually covers only the most recent loan, which is a consolidation loan that has little to no history. So if you are on the receiving end of one of these first letters and you know you have older loans and qualifying employment and a lot of history, just wait for the second letter to come, because it's usually much more accurate. You can also log on to MOHELA's website and select PSLF in the navigation bar. And if the PSLF menu is available to you, you will be able to see the PSLF applications that you've submitted. And you can also look at the payment tracker, and the payment tracker can be used for you to see a month-by-month breakdown of the repayment history for each loan you have, as well as the months that have corresponding employment to match the repayment history. And you can see which months are missing themselves, and which loans are missing employment to match the repayment history. So unfortunately, when some people see the first letter, they think that that means that they are ineligible for public service loan forgiveness. And sometimes the letters do say that you are not eligible for public service loan forgiveness at this time. It does not mean that you are ineligible for PSLF forever. It just means at the time that this count was conducted, based on the qualifying payment count that the servicer came up with, you are not eligible for the benefit of full cancellation at that time. It probably means that your qualifying payment count is just less than 120 at this time, so you're currently ineligible for the ultimate benefit of loan forgiveness. But do not think that that means you are ruled out from PSLF forever. All right, so I just wanted to share with you all a real life example of how this PSLF process works. This is for a borrower who actually attended office hours in December of 2021 and decided to consolidate all of their direct loans for their own education, as well as the Parent Plus loans that they had taken out for their child. So they filled out the consolidation application and forwarded their loans to Fed Loan Servicing. They also submitted the PSLF application during the limited waiver period to document their employment for a qualifying employer. And they've got way more than 10 years of qualifying employment. By the summer of 2022, their loans were transferred from Fed Loan Servicing to MOHELA. And MOHELA, of course, is the current servicer for public service loan forgiveness. In November of 2022, the borrower was finally able to see a qualifying payment count update. And this screenshot is actually from the borrower's account. If you take a look at this screenshot, you'll see that, and this is found in the payment tracker menu, you'll see eligible payments, qualifying, and then need employment certification, and then totally ineligible payments. So if you look at the blue numbers there listed under the columns PSLF and TEPSLF, these numbers are clickable. So if you click on those numbers, you'll be able to see the month-by-month breakdown. But if you just stick to this table, you'll see that the borrower has 63 eligible payments. For a payment to be eligible, that means that there was a payment made, or if the application is being evaluated under the rules of the waiver, then that month of repayment history counts as eligible. Of the eligible payments, the qualifying payments are those months during which the borrower also has verified employment for a qualifying employer. So of the 63 eligible payments that this borrower has on file, 52 of those months have verified employment attached to them. So since 52 are qualifying, the remaining 11 months need employment certified. The borrower submitted an employment certification last December, so it looks like that form has not been fully processed yet, or else these 11 months from this year would have been reflected in the qualifying payments. In looking at this borrower's payment records, it was also noted that the entire period of the CARES Act forbearance is not listed within the monthly payment records. So on top of the 63 eligible payments that have been included, all of the months from March 2020 up until now, the end of November 2022, are not listed. So that's nearly another 3 years of qualifying payments this borrower will have, because the time during the CARES Act forbearance will count toward public service loan forgiveness, because this borrower has loans that were included in the CARES Act forbearance, as well as qualifying employment for the entire time. Another period of missing payments includes a voluntary forbearance. The borrower placed their loans in a forbearance that ended up being about 13 or 14 months. And none of that is included in the month-by-month breakdown. So if those months are added, it's quite possible, according to the rules of the waiver, that forbearance, that entire forbearance period should be counted, because it's a forbearance of greater than 12 consecutive months. So even though we've got 63 eligible payments here, we know that the borrower has more than 10 years of qualifying employment. We also know that there are nearly 3 years of qualifying payments logged during the CARES Act forbearance, and there may be another 13 or 14 payments that end up counting because of forbearance that extended beyond 12 consecutive months. So this is another example of how these qualifying payment counts are truly works in progress. The 63 number seemed kind of low, and to find out exactly why it seemed low, they just had to click on the number 63 and view that month-by-month breakdown to see the information that MOHELA has processed up until now. So I'm looking forward to hearing another update from this borrower after their entire repayment history has been reflected. All right, and about the limited PSLF waiver, since I mentioned it in speaking about the previous borrower situation, I just wanted to give an update for the state of Maryland. As of the end of October 2022, 6,810 Marylanders have been approved for public service loan forgiveness for a total of $465.3 million worth of canceled debt. So PSLF applications are continuing to be processed, but if you've kept up, with the updates from month to month, you'll notice that the pace has definitely slowed. I believe last week, on our November 16th edition of Office Hours, I believe the number I shared was $462.7 million. And so that's not even a $3 million increase during that 1 month period. So the pace has definitely slowed, but things are still moving forward. This is also a good opportunity to share for those of you who are concerned about PSLF and whether your applications will be processed. Public service loan forgiveness is completely separate from the Biden-Harris Student Debt Relief Plan. The Biden-Harris Student Debt Relief Plan was announced on August 24th. That's the plan that is currently being held up in courts, and that application, as well as the discharge of debt, is currently blocked. Public service loan forgiveness was an existing program that went into effect October 1st of 2007. So this the current situation with the lawsuits around the one-time cancellation plan, they're totally separate from PSLF and do not affect your PSLF application. So the processing of PSLF applications will continue to move forward regardless of what happens with the lawsuits related to the Biden-Harris Student Debt Relief Plan. All right, so let's move on to the next question, and that is, I have FFELP loans. Can I get cancellation through IDR? And this is a loaded question, so I'm going to give quite a bit of background here to walk through the answer. FFELP loans are older loans called, I'm sorry, the name escapes me right now. I can't believe this is happening. FFELP loans, Federal Family Education Loans. Those are older loans that were originated before the direct loan program came about. And FFELP loans have some limitations when it comes to opportunities for forgiveness, cancellation, and even flexibility with repayment plans. But there is an option to receive cancellation outside of public service, and that's through income-driven repayment. Right now, the Department of Education is implementing a one-time IDR adjustment. But before I get into the adjustment, I just want to back up and talk a bit about exactly what IDR is. IDR stands for income-driven repayment. And there are several income-driven repayment plans available from the Department of Education. With income-driven repayment plans, the monthly payments are calculated based on a person's household characteristics, as well as their adjusted gross income. This is unlike balance-driven plans, where the monthly payments are based solely upon what the borrower owes and the time period that they're planning to repay the debt over. So with income-driven repayment plans, cancellation is an option. It just takes a lot longer than it would with public service loan forgiveness. These IDR plans offer cancellation after a borrower has been in repayment for 20 or 25 years, depending on the repayment plan that the borrower was enrolled in. So I mentioned that there are several income-based repayment plans, and I'm going to provide you with some details about each one. First is income-based repayment, also known as IBR. Income-based repayment usually offers cancellation after a borrower has made payments for 25 years. But for new borrowers, and a new borrower is someone who borrowed for the first time after July 1st of 2014, that repayment term drops to 20 years. But the point is, cancellation is available if you've been in repayment for 20 or 25 years while enrolled in IBR. For income contingent repayment, which is known as ICR, cancellation is offered after 25 years in repayment. For pay-as-you-earn, which is a more recently released plan, that plan offers cancellation after 20 years. For revised pay-as-you-earn, it depends on whether loans borrowed were for undergraduate study or for graduate or professional school study. If all of the loans being repaid under the revised pay-as-you-earn plan are for undergraduate study, then a borrower could receive cancellation after being in repayment for 20 years. But if there are any loans being repaid under this plan that are for graduate or professional study, then the repayment term jumps up to 25 years. But with all of these income-driven plans, the larger point is to remember that cancellation is an option. It takes a lot longer than public service loan forgiveness, but there is a pathway to cancellation, and it comes after a borrower has been in repayment on one of these plans for 20 or 25 years, depending on the plan. And in the case of revised pay-as-you-earn, depending on what kind of study the loans were taken out for. So why is the Department of Education conducting this one-time adjustment? I'm pulling language straight from their website here. ED is conducting a one-time revision of IDR payment counters to address past inaccuracies, including automatically discharging loans for eligible borrowers and permanently fixing IDR payment counting by reforming ED's IDR tracking procedures going forward. Basically, payments weren't being counted, so there's really no way to tell for many borrowers whether they have met the requirement of having been in repayment for 20 or 25 years because there were no payment counts. So in going back to conduct this one-time adjustment, the Department of Education is looking at repayment histories, and they'll give credit toward IDR forgiveness for the following periods. First is any months in which a borrower had time in a repayment status, regardless of the payments made, the loan type, or the repayment plan. Second, any periods where there were 12 or more months of a consecutive forbearance or 36 or more months of cumulative forbearance, and that time would be credited both toward IDR forgiveness and public service loan forgiveness. Third is months that were spent in deferment prior to 2013, but there's a note that this would exclude in-school deferment periods, and this is typical. When you enroll in school at least half time, if you have any existing loans, those loans will be placed into an in-school deferment, meaning that payments are not required. So since payments are not required, the loans were not in repayment, those periods in in-school deferment will not count towards IDR or PSLF forgiveness. Fourth and finally, any time in repayment prior to consolidation on consolidated loans. So if you just consolidated 15-year-old loans last year, that 15-year history would be evaluated as well. You would not be penalized for having consolidated recently. But with this one-time review, this will make it so that every borrower will know where they stand relative to that 20 or 25-year mark. In terms of months, that's 240 months or 300 months. And for many people, this will offer a pathway to cancellation a lot faster than what they are currently looking toward. So as a result, any borrower with loans that have accumulated time in repayment of at least 20 or 25 years will see automatic forgiveness, even if they are not currently enrolled in an IDR plan. And the last I saw, this forgiveness was supposed to be seen this month in November of 2022. Please note, if you have commercially managed loans, these could be FFELP loans, Perkins loans, health education assistance loans, or other non-direct loans, you need to apply for a direct consolidation loan by May 1st of 2023 to get the full benefits of this one-time IDR account adjustment. If you want to know if your loans are commercially managed, you can visit studentaid.gov to confirm that, and I'll show you how to do that on the next screen. Also, if you are in default, you can benefit by getting out of default, including through the Fresh Start Initiative, before July 2023. So if you are in default, please do reach out to the Department of Education about getting out of default so that you can maximize your use of any benefits that might be available to you through this IDR adjustment. So in terms of figuring out what kinds of loans you have, whether your loans are federally held or privately held, you want to log into studentaid.gov and view your loan servicers. If your loans are held by the Department of Education, you'll see the servicer name, but before the servicer name, you'll see Department of Ed, or if the loans are in default, you'll see Default Management Collection System. That means either one of those terms means that the loans are federally held. And as an example, you might see Nelnet as the servicer. If it's preceded by the Department of Education, that lets you know that the loans are indeed federally held. Now, with this IDR adjustment, this could make a huge difference for people who have been in repayment for many years. So if you have FFELP loans with outstanding balances, this IDR adjustment could really help you. And I want to show you how by using a real life example from a FFELP borrower that I'm working with. So this borrower has a FFELP consolidation loan that was originated in 2006. The original principal balance on that loan was $14,500. The current balance in 2022 is $11,110. As for the payment plan is called Select 2, and I've got to be honest with you, I have no idea what that means. These FFELP loans have repayment plans outside of the loans, the repayment plans that are offered on direct loans. I'm used to seeing, income-based repayment, income contingent repayment, pay-as-you-earn, revised pay-as-you-earn, the standard and graduated 10-year plans, or extended fixed and extended graduated plans that are 25 years in length. Select 2 is not something that I've seen before, but again, this is what happens with FFELP loans. There are other types of repayment plans available. So for this particular plan, in this particular loan, the monthly payment due is $73. And another thing to point out about FFELP loans is that this particular FFELP loan is commercially held, so it was not included in the CARES Act forbearance. That means that this borrower did not get a break. This borrower had to continue making payments throughout the entire CARES Act forbearance that began March 13th of 2020. This borrower had to continue to make payments to keep this loan in good standing. So the monthly payment required is $73. And I wanted to note that of that $73 per month, more than half of that payment is going toward interest. So you've got $41 going to interest, $32 going toward the principal on that loan for a payment of $73 per month. Now, interestingly, the repayment term listed for the loan is 248 months. That equates to 20 years and 8 months. The expected payoff date for this loan is 2042. This is where I struggled just with reviewing this and trying to make sense of the record, because the loan was originated in 2006. We are here in 2022. So that means this loan has been in repayment for 16 years. If the loan is not paid off until 2042, that's another 20 years from now. So that means that this loan would have taken 36 years to repay. 36 years is beyond any repayment term that I've seen available on federal student loans, but this is not the only person that I've seen in this situation. So again, 2042 is the expected payoff date. The repayment term is 248 months, but at the current pace, this loan will have taken 36 years to repay, and that does not include the repayment history of the original loans that went into the consolidation loan. So, income-driven repayment plans are supposed to offer an option for cancellation after a borrower has been in repayment for 20 or 25 years. On this consolidation loan, this particular borrower has been in repayment for 16 years. Of course, the Department of Education will have to go back through this borrower's repayment history and look at those 16 years to determine which months of repayment qualify. But because this borrower has a FFELP loan that is commercially held, that means it's held by a bank, even though it's a federal student loan, this borrower would have to consolidate their loans by May 1st of 2023 in order for the loans to get the full benefit of this one-time IDR adjustment. Also, the payment counts for the IDR account adjustment are scheduled to be updated in July of 2023. So for this borrower, they should consolidate by May 1st. They should expect to receive a count in July of 2023. And at that point, they'll know where they stand relative to the 20 or 25 years required to gain cancellation through income-driven repayment. Either way, this borrower, from my view, is looking at repayment ending before 2042, because in the worst case, let's say that this borrower could be offered cancellation after 25 years of payments. They've already got 16 years in, plus any repayment history on the original loans before they were consolidated in 2006. So 2042 is another 20 years away. I think this person is definitely closer to the prospect of cancellation through IDR than they would ever be to the zero balance, under original plans, which would place them at fully repaying the loans in 2042. So this is just an example of the difference that this income-driven repayment adjustment can make, especially for FFELP loan borrowers, because they have those older loans that may have these repayment plans where much of the payments are going toward interest, so it takes much longer than originally projected to pay off these loans. So if you have FFELP loans, especially commercially held FFELP loans, I strongly encourage you to take a look at the IDR adjustment details. You can visit studentaid.gov to get details on this, and just take a look at the loans, take a look at your expected payoff date, and you will probably find that consolidation will get you closer to achieving that zero balance in less time. All right, so let's shift gears from privately held federal student loans to private loans. This is from a borrower who has private loans and wants to know, who should I refinance them with? I must say that I cannot, I choose not to recommend any specific lenders. I don't endorse lenders. I can share factors that you should consider if you are looking to refinance your private student loans, but I do not recommend lenders or endorse any. So in terms of refinancing, there are several reasons why a borrower might decide to refinance loans. They may be looking for interest rate savings. They may have taken out the debt with a cosigner and they would like to refinance that debt to release the cosigner from their obligation. They also might want to extend the repayment term length. For some people, the payments might be high, and refinancing the debt could give them a chance to start repayment over again with a longer term, and that longer term would likely lower the monthly payment. So as an example here, this is a real life example. Jay borrowed, of course the name has been changed. Jay borrowed private loans for his education and asked his mother to co-sign the debt. The interest rates are variable and range from 12.5 to 13.75%. A couple of things I want to point out about this example. One, this is about private loans. These are loans that were issued by a private bank, not the U.S. Department of Education. So these are not federal student loans. These are private student loans that the borrower took out with his mother as a co-signer, meaning that if the borrower was unable to make payments, then the lender would pursue his mom to make the payments since he is not able to make those payments. The interest rates are variable. That means that the interest rates can change from time to time. Those intervals are disclosed by the lender, but this means that the interest rate can fluctuate. The current range is 12.5 to 13.75%, which is a relatively high, I'd say. So for this borrower, what are some factors to consider? The first one I'd suggest thinking about is time. How long have you been in repayment? If you had loans with a repayment term of 15 years and you are in year 14, then refinancing probably wouldn't make sense for you because you got 1 year left, and you could just pay the loans off in that 1 year if you're able to, instead of refinancing the debt and stretching out the repayment term for longer. If you are at the opposite end of the spectrum and you've got a 15-year loan and you're only 1 year into repayment, then you haven't made as much progress in repaying that debt. So refinancing and starting the clock over again would not affect you as much. The second thing to consider is definitely interest rates. And I also must say that when I put together this list of factors to consider, these are not in any particular order of priority. So these are just factors for you to consider, and it's up to you to assign a level of importance to each one. So after time, I have interest rates. The first question to ask, is the interest rate fixed or variable? If you are looking for a fixed rate, that means that once the loan has been originated, that interest rate is locked in. That would be the interest rate for the life of the loan. If the rate is variable, that means that the rate can change at set time intervals. So it could be quarterly, maybe monthly, maybe annually. It depends on the lender, but you definitely want to read the fine print about variable rates, the interval, and also the underlying rate that your variable rate is attached to. Right now, we are in a period of experiencing several interest rate increases. So rates are relatively higher than they were perhaps a year ago this time. So if you're looking to refinance, you definitely want to take a look at the current rate of your debt versus the market rate for private student loans right now. And there are plenty of lenders. So there are plenty of institutions that you could go to, but you always want to make sure that you have an idea of prevailing interest rates. Like, what's the going interest rate for a private loan refinance right now, so that you know if the rate that you've been offered is a competitive rate, or if it's ridiculously high, or if it sounds like it's too low and too good to be true, and perhaps there's some other terms involved with that really low rate. So that leads to the next points. Are the interest rates attractive? When I say are they attractive, I mean relative to the going rate for private loan refinancing. Is this rate comparable? If the going rate appears to be 10% and this loan offers 15%, that's not attractive. But if going rates are 10% and a new lender is offering you 10.5%, then that's definitely more attractive because it's more in line with market interest rates. Also, are the rates permanent? Sometimes you may see rates that are referred to as teasers. There may be a low rate for an initial period, and after that period has ended, the interest rate increases. So you always want to make sure that you are aware of the terms of the interest rates. Are the rates permanent? Are they introductory low rates that increase in a certain amount of time? Are they fixed for a period and then switch to variable? There are just so many variations within loan terms that you really have to read the fine print and shop around. You want to make sure that you are getting a rate that's competitive, a rate that is not only competitive compared to other interest rates, but also reflects your credit history. If you have great history, you should have access to a better rate. So when you're taking a look at those rates, please do make sure that you're reading the fine terms. After the interest rates, I'd recommend taking a look at fees. Are there any upfront fees, like an application fee, origination fees? Are there fees for later on? If you have made a late payment, how much is that fee? Are there any other penalties attached? If so, how much are they? And what are the conditions that would trigger those penalties to go into effect? So take a look not only at the interest rates and the time, but also fees that can occur if you experience difficulty repaying the debt. Also take a look at options that are available for borrowers who are experiencing difficulty with loan repayment. What are the forbearance options or options for taking a temporary pause in payments if you experience financial hardship? Lastly, take a look at online reviews and see what people are saying about the companies. If you see consistently poor ratings, then there might be something behind that. You can also take a look at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, that's the CFPB. You can find them at consumerfinance.gov. Take a look at their complaint database and read what people have to say about private lenders. And after you've done this research of looking to see what other people have experienced and looking at the terms of lending, you'll be able to make a more informed decision about whether to refinance. And if you decide to refinance, you'll have a solid base for making a decision about who to refinance with. All right, so going back to federal student loans, before I wrap up, I just wanted to share with you some informational resources for borrowers. If you're dealing with federal student loans, and of course, studentaid.gov is the best place to go because that's your lender. If you log into studentaid.gov, you can view your loans. If you are applying for public service loan forgiveness, you can use the PSLF help tool to complete most of your application online. If you need to consolidate, especially for that income-driven repayment account adjustment, you can complete the application to consolidate online anytime for free at studentaid.gov. You do not need to pay anyone to complete the consolidation application for you. You can do it online yourself through studentaid.gov. Also, of course, the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness. We are located online at mccfw.org. And although the limited PSLF waiver has expired, some features of the waiver are continuing until May the 1st. So if you'd like information about the waiver and public service loan forgiveness in general, you can visit us online at mccfw.org/MDTAPS. Also, the Institute of Student Loan Advisors offers free student loan advice, and their address is freestudentloanadvice.org. If you're interested in information from borrowers about what they're seeing with the PSLF application process, you can check out Reddit. There's a PSLF mega thread that was created by the founder of the Institute of Student Loan Advisors, and people are just so open in offering support and sharing their experiences with the application process and student loans in general. So if you want to know what the real borrower experience is looking like right now, definitely check out that mega thread. Also, another website that I refer many people to is that of the Student Borrower Protection Center. They're at cancelmystudentdebt.org. They have laid out a great, the word is escaping me right now. They laid out a map of paths toward cancellation for IDR or through PSLF, and providing background on the Biden-Harris Student Debt Relief Plan. And you can visit them online at cancelmystudentdebt.org. All right, so that takes care of all the questions that I received from borrowers leading up to this session. I would like to thank you for joining me for another edition of Office Hours. Again, my name is Dr. Tisa Silver Kennedy. I'm the founder and director of the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness. This is November the 30th, and our next Office Hours session, I believe, is scheduled for December the 14th. And at that time, we will be celebrating the 1-year anniversary of Office Hours. The time has definitely flown by, but we've been doing this for 1 year, and looking forward to reporting back some impact of this 1 year of virtual student debt clinics known as Office Hours. I'm going to take a peek at social media to see if we've got anything there. I don't see any questions. I'm going to check the Q&A on Zoom. And since there are none, I think I'm going to go ahead and sign off for this evening. I would like to thank you for joining me for another edition of Office Hours, the free virtual student debt clinic hosted by the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness. I know that it's a busy season, the holidays are here, and I'm wishing you a happy holiday season. I hope that for those of you that are student loan borrowers, for most of you, that the payment pause has given you the opportunity to have a sigh of relief, but also experience some financial relief, and hopefully things that are currently in the hands of the courts will be settled soon. If you have any questions in between the conclusion of this edition of Office Hours and our next session, which is scheduled for December the 14th, please do reach out to us on social media at the MCCFW, or you can visit mccfw.org/contact and submit your questions there. So thank you again for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will see you on our next edition of Office Hours. Be well in the meantime.